Will you check, Kiran? It's not there. It's not happening. Still has not come on YouTube.
Sir, I think it started just now. You can check.
Nahi rahe. Okay.
It's showing in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So please. Good evening, everyone, and Aditi, thank you very much for joining us. And I'll request our PA to just start with a brief introduction, and then over to you. Kiran, please.
Yes. A very good evening to one and all. Today with us we have Aditi Diodhar, the founder director, Jeevit Nadi, a Living River Foundation initiative for river revival through people's participation. She has a master's degree in industrial mathematics with computer applications and a postgraduate diploma in sustainable management of natural resources and nature conservation from Ecological Society. In today's talk, the speaker gives a presentation to tell the story of the Brownleaf Initiative, its history, its mode of operation, and the plans it has going forward. On behalf of the Sitara family, I welcome you, ma'am. Now we can proceed towards the session.
Thank you. Thanks for making me part of your event, and hello everybody. So I'll just share my screen. So just let me know if it is visible.
It's fine, Aditi. Yes.
Okay, sure.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So today I will be discussing about initiative Brownleaf, and Brownleaf is a online forum, and we work with the objective that not a single dry leaf should be burnt in India. So this is the common site actually from mid-October, roughly around mid-October, leaf fall starts, and anywhere in the city across India, you will find this, such a thing that a layer of dry, wherever there is any horizontal surface, it is usually covered with layer of dry leaves. And so in this talk, we'll discuss about why trees shed leaves, what happens in nature, and suddenly why it has become such a challenge for us in the cities or in any urban landscape, and why burning is not such a good idea, and if not burn, what to do. Means that's where Brownleaf comes into picture, and how we started. I would really like to share my experience and how that concept emerged and how it evolved over time. And now what I have visualized how it should go ahead from my experience with this initiative in Pune city. So first, why trees shed leaves is all trees shed leaves, or rather all leaves fall off at some point. But major challenge is posed for us by the deciduous trees, because deciduous trees are the trees that shed all of their leaves for some part of the year. That is, they become completely leafless. And that's why the amount of leaf litter that is generated is quite huge. So as you can see in this picture, and that's why when we say brown leaf, it actually pertains to any leaf. But the most challenge is posed for us in the cities is by deciduous trees. So I will be discussing about deciduous trees most importantly, but any leaf can be used in mulching and composting. So brown leaf is just any dry leaf, but today we'll focus more on deciduous trees. So deciduous, that word comes from decidere, Latin word, where it is to fall off or to shed. And so why trees shed leaves is that it's their adaptation to manage in the summer months, because when in summer months in the heat is there, and there is water scarcity. And so the trees need to, or all of us for that matter, need to manage with whatever space water that is available with us. And in case of trees, as you know, the root system of the trees absorbs water and nutrients from the soil. Then that water is distributed throughout the tree body, and there are small pores or microscopic pores on leaves called stomata, through which this exchange takes place, and the water is thrown out of the tree body through this stomata. So the leaves are the outlets for water as far as the tree is concerned. And so what will be the best strategy to conserve water is to just get rid of these outlets of water. And so once the leaves fall off, so the water is available with the tree remains with it. And so tree is able to manage through those challenging summer months. And so this is the adaptation, especially in tropical regions, adapted by the this is adaptation by the trees in tropical regions to manage in the summer months. And so basically this preparation starts right from the winter. So typically around mid-October you will observe that leaf fall starts, and so trees start preparing for the coming summer. And so typically this is the cycle that the trees, especially the deciduous trees, they just shed all of their leaves. So the tree becomes completely leafless for some part of the year. Then these leaves, they fall off and they form a layer on the soil around the tree. And so this is a typical, this is where there is no human interference, so there is nobody to sweep off those dry leaves. So this is the typical site where the leaves fall. They remain on the ground around the tree. So the soil around the tree remains covered under this layer of dry leaves. So this layer of dry leaves actually form a protective layer for the soil. So in summer months, even soil gets protection from the sun rays. So the sun rays don't fall on the soil directly. And because of that, because of this layer of leaves, soil is able to retain moisture for a long time. So you will find that whenever you see that there is a soil that is constantly exposed to sunlight, that it especially by the roadside, if you have observed that soil, by just looking at the soil, you know that there is no life left in it. So it is very hard, very dry. And as opposed to that, if we go to any this landscape like this, then we'll see that if you remove that layer of dry leaves, you will find the soil underneath is dark, it is moist, and just by looking at it, you know that it is teeming with life. So it will be microbial, a lot of microbial activity goes on that soil. So the microbial activity to continue, the moisture is needed, which on this dry leaves layer ensures that soil is able to retain that moisture. And there are a lot of insects that are vital for soil health. They also find shelter under these dry leaves. And once summer is over and when monsoons arrive, these dry leaves, since they are completely biodegradable, they decompose and they are returned to the soil. When a tree is growing, it absorbs various nutrients from the soil, and a proportion of that nutrients is present in these fallen leaves. So when these leaves decompose, the nutrients get dissolved in the water, the rainwater, and the nutrients are returned to the soil in the and they are available for the tree in the form in which the tree can absorb it. So this is the cyclic process that goes on, and that's why in nature there is no concept of waste. So even dry leaves is not a problem where there is such a landscape, because there is a cyclic process. So output from one process serves as input to some other process. And that's why nature does not have infinite resources, but it is able to manage because it keeps on using and reusing the same resources in this cyclic process. Now coming back to our cities, why it has become such a challenge for us is that this is again a representative of what happens in an urban landscape. So as opposed to this, where there is a lot of soil present for that cyclic process to take place, here we have lots of hardscapes. So all our most of our soil surfaces are hidden under these hardscapes. So we have roads, we have buildings, we have footpaths, we have various such structures where leaves fall. They do decompose. When the rains arrive, they are anyway, they are biodegradable, they are going to decompose, but there is no soil where they can go back to. So those decomposed leaves, they just find a mushy or muddy something, mass which remains on the concrete surface. So it is not aesthetically pleasing for us, and it is not convenient for us also. And that's why it feels that it is something which is dirty and which is something which one needs to get rid of. So this is what the challenge is, that though this process has been going on for many years, the trees have been shedding leaves for many years, but this suddenly has become a problem for us because we don't have space and we don't have many soil surfaces left in the city. And that's why this process, which was a cyclic process, even till a few years back in cities also it was a cyclic process, because every bungalow typically had a backyard where there used to be there used to be some place where all the dry leaves and all the leftovers from the kitchen used to be decomposed, or there used to be a pit where it used to happen. And so it was not a problem even then, but now suddenly we don't have soil, we don't like mud also. So usually even in the society all the soil surfaces are covered with paver blocks or something, and that's why this process, which used to be cyclic, now has turned linear. So that is a problem with linear process. So typically what linear process looks like is we create something, we utilize it, and we throw it away, and that is where that waste is created. So again, in case of leaves, though they are biodegradable, since they have no scope to go back to the soil, the process has become linear, and that's why the leaves fall off, they decompose, and they remain there. And that's why then tendency is to get rid of those dry leaves. So we'll discuss more on that. So this is the challenge, that on footpath or any concrete surface, when leaf falls, that in nature there is a soil to soil principle, that it's little philosophical also, that everything comes from the soil and everything goes back to the soil. And that is where problem is created in urban landscape, where there is no scope for this to happen. So this is a typical challenge. As I said, every horizontal surface in the site gets covered with layer of dry leaves. And so the typical the tendency is to just get rid of those dry leaves. And so getting rid of those dry leaves is one strategy, is to just burn them off, because they are dry and they burn off easily, and all this heap of large heap of dry leaves gets reduced to a handful of ash. So it seems very convenient. And and once you start the fire, there is nothing you need to do actually, so it will be taken care of automatically. And then other tendency is to just dump those dry leaves in municipal waste collection. So we'll just discuss about why those both strategies are not advisable. The first thing is burning of dry leaves. So as you know, burning first output is the smoke, which is not very pleasant. That we know it creates lots of breathing problems for us. It is a irritation for us for breathing and eyes also. People who suffer from asthma, for them it is even more of a problem. Also, but when anything organic is burned, because life on earth is carbon based, we all living things are made of carbon. So whenever any organic thing is burned, the result is that oxygen gets combined with that carbon, and so result is carbon dioxide. And as we all know that carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases, it contributes to global warming. In case there is not sufficient oxygen, that leaf pile smothers, then result is carbon monoxide. So again, carbon monoxide is also one of the greenhouse gases. Its contribution to global warming is more than carbon dioxide. And carbon monoxide, it's actually called poisonous gas, because it is very hazardous to our health. What it does, it gets attached to the red blood cells in our blood, and over the period, the constant exposure to carbon monoxide, it over the period reduces their oxygen carrying capacity. So it's extremely hazardous to our health. And as I said, its global warming potential is more than that of carbon dioxide. So both carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide is the output contributing to global warming. Then smoke is something which is not very pleasant to have around. And also, as I mentioned, that there are nutrients that are present in these leaves which get destroyed in the process, which should have gone back to the soil. And then there is a fire hazard also, because this is open burning. why we have objection to it is open burning. And whenever there is open burn, we really don't have any control over fire, and especially in leaf fall season, you will find that fire will get continuous patches of these dry leaves. So dry leaves are everywhere, so there is a very good chance that this fire can go out of control and it can spread to other areas where we don't want. So once we start fire, we really don't have much control over it. So that's why it's a environment hazard, it's a health hazard, and it's a fire hazard. So in all these uh, the, uh, all these aspects, burning is not such a good idea. And then why dumping those dry leaves in municipal waste collection, why it's not a good idea is again the very small proportion of these dry leaves or any organic matter for them is composted in any municipal corporation, because they simply don't have that many resources, and maybe lack of willpower at times also. But for municipal waste collection, strategy is to collect all these waste and dump it in the dump yards. And as you know, the dump yards are typically on the periphery of any city. So we are actually putting our things that we don't want in somebody's backyard. And then around 4 years back, then Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, had declared that in Maharashtra, now there is no space left for any new dump yard. And I'm sure every city is approaching that, every state is approaching this problem, that there is no place left for to create new dump yards. The dump yards which already are there, they are facing problem. Might be recalling that at Devnar near Mumbai there was a large fire, because what happens when in dump yard, a lot of waste is dumped together, so it can be combination of biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. And whenever there is biodegradable waste, it is going to decompose. And if there are large piles of waste, then the lower layers do not get sufficient oxygen, and that's why the process turns anaerobic, and result of anaerobic digestion is methane. And methane, as you are aware, is a highly inflammable gas, and that's why these dump yards catch fire from time to time. And so that's why again, first thing means dump yard itself is a very bad concept or unfair concept to our neighbors. And again, we are running out of space for dump yards, and organic matter, when it goes to dump yard, the result can be methane. Methane again is one of the greenhouse gases, and its global warming potential is more than carbon dioxide. So again, if you consider all these things, then again dumping leaves in municipal waste collection, that is also not such a good idea. So I'll say, and again, as you say, it's not that many people disagree with that. Means it's not everybody's choice to burn dry leaves, and so. Again, that argument was same, that okay, we agree that burning is not such a good idea, but then what is the alternative? That is the question that is asked often. So I will just share what we did in our city. So for me, actually, it started with my own backyard. We in our backyard, we have a huge tree. It's our monkey biscuit tree, and it's a pleasure to have that tree in my backyard, because there are lots of birds come there, lots of squirrels are there, and it's really a heaven for birds, and it's really pleasant to have that. But again, for some part of the year, it becomes a very, very, very big headache for us, because it's a huge tree. It's a deciduous tree, so it becomes completely leafless for 4 months of the year. And since it's a large tree, the amount of dry leaves that get generated is also huge. So around 7 years back, I am sad to say that, but we used to do the same thing, that the lady who sweeps our premises of our building, she used to collect those dry leaves in a heap, and she used to set fire to it. After doing PG diploma in sustainable management, then my awareness level increased, and I decided that we should not burn these dry leaves. I mean, the sight of burning leaves bother me, but now I was more determined, because I knew they are biodegradable. They will go back to the soil, so why to burn them off? And so I decided at least I will put stop to this practice in my building itself. And so I requested that lady that don't burn them, just collect them in heap, but just keep them as it is. She said okay, and I was very happy that okay, I have solved this problem. About a month passed and that lady returned to me and she said that now the heap is very large and now people will start complaining. And so what exactly are you planning to do with those dry leaves? And then at that time, I realized that just asking people not to burn dry leaves is not sufficient. We need to provide an alternative. And honestly, what alternative was, I had no idea. My thinking only was that their leaves are biodegradable and they should not be burned. Let them go back to the soil. But how to do that, and I had no idea. Then I took help of social media. So I just drafted one message and I posted that message on all the WhatsApp groups where I was a member. That I asked that I have so many dry leaves and what one can do with those dry leaves. Please contact me. I requested them. I got many replies actually, and one particular attracted my attention. It was from Sujata. You can see her in the photo, Sujata Nafde, also resident of Pune city. And she said that whatever leaves my tree shades, she can accommodate all those leaves in her garden. That was her message. And she said, if you can collect those dry leaves in gunny bags, I will immediately pick them up. And so that's what I did. I just went to my nearest regular grocery store. I picked up some gunny bags, because in our city that is also a problem. But so I acquired those gunny bags, and with help of that lady, we both of us collected those leaves in gunny bags, packed them and kept them for Sujata. So very next day she came in her car and took those 5 to 6 gunny bags. And I got really curious with that, because for me those dry leaves had become big headache. And this lady came all the way it's around 10 kilometers from my place, her house. She came all the way from that place to just pick up those dry leaves. So then I got curious exactly what she does with those dry leaves. So I actually requested that I want to see exactly what you do with that those dry leaves. So I visited her garden. And what I saw was, it was I can just get a glimpse of that. Strawberries are there, cabbage is there. Actually, name any vegetable, and she has that in her garden. And it's a perfect green patch or urban farm, I would say. And there were fruit trees are there, various leafy vegetables are there, and it's amazing. She also cultivates grapes on her terrace. Then when I saw her garden, I realized that even if I donate every leaf from my tree to her, still it was not going to be sufficient. So exactly what she was doing with dry leaves was that in her society, she resides in a bungalow society where she owned a plot just next to her bungalow. That plot was vacant for many years. Then someday when she realized that lot of pesticides and lot of chemical fertilizers are used in the vegetables that we eat, she decided that she will grow her own vegetables. And she will grow vegetables for her family, her brother and her brother-in-law, who are also her neighbors. And so since she had that plot with her, so she decided that she will use that plot to cultivate vegetables. The challenge was that the plot, since it was vacant for many years, the builder had used as a dumping ground when the construction of other bungalows took place. So lot of construction debris was dumped there over the years. And so there was no soil left in that plot. So all the upper layers were of construction debris. And so as you know, buying soil is very expensive matter, and it's not ecologically advisable also, because you are depriving some other area of the soil. So what she had planned to do, or she had already put that in practice, was she wanted to create that missing organic matter using dry leaves. And that's why she needed those dry leaves in very large quantity. So as I said, that even though my tree is huge and lot of dry leaves are generated every leaf fall season, still all those leaves were not going to be sufficient for her. Her requirement was more than that. And then it was actually eye-opening thing for me, because till then my thought process was that these leaves are not waste. But now with Sujata's example, I realized that not only they are not waste, but they are such a huge resource, and we are, by burning, we are just destroying that resource. Then just like Sujata, there are many gardeners now. Bangalore has been very pioneering in that grow your own food movement, and now it is catching up in all other cities also. So even in Pune, there are many people who are utilizing their empty spaces or terraces to cultivate vegetables for their family. And especially for terrace gardeners, dry leaves are very essential, because as you know, in terrace there is no soil, so you have to start from zero, so you have to create all that organic matter. Then dry, as I said, buying soil is not an option, so many people are adopting this model of soil-less garden. So there is 0% soil in the their garden, so all that organic matter is created using dry leaves and kitchen waste. So they require dry leaves. Also, carrying dry leaves to the terrace is very easy. Also, the soil becomes very heavy when it absorbs water, but that is not the case with dry leaf compost. So for structural integrity, also dry leaves make a good candidate. And again, carrying dry leaves to terrace as opposed to soil, it's quite convenient because they're light in weight. So these terrace gardeners are the people who are constantly on lookout for dry leaves. Then with my experience, I knew there are a lot of dry leaves available in the city, at least for 6 months of the year. Then what was the challenge? The challenge is getting dry leaves is not a challenge. Getting clean dry leaves is a challenge, because it's just a representative scale that I have created. Since dry leaves are considered as waste, the perception is where there is a heap of dry leaves by the roadside, lot of waste is dumped in, a lot of garbage is dumped in that. So you will find just about anything in those, like it can be diapers, sanitary napkins, bottles, wrappers, anything. So just about anything is dumped in that heap of dry leaves. So first thing is that collecting dry leaves from roadside may not be a comfortable idea for many. And next challenging is that lot of waste is mixed with those dry leaves. So getting clean dry leaves is not such a good thing, though dry leaves are available in such a huge quantity. So that was a challenge shared by people like Sujata and fellow terrace gardeners. So there are people who have dry leaves. There are people who want dry leaves. So I decided that, so let's focus first, instead of going on in the public areas where we really don't have any control about who dumps what in those dry leaves. So first focus on these people. So people like me who have dry leaves available in their premises. So where they have control over this, that nothing, no waste is dumped in those dry leaves. So there are clean leaves are available. So there are people who have these clean dry leaves. There are people who want those dry leaves. And so it was a eureka moment for me. Okay, so there are people who have dry leaves, there are people who want dry leaves. So it's classic economic problem that there is supply, there is demand, so there is availability, there is requirement, and the most beautiful thing is that both are in the same city, and both are many times both are there side by side actually. So simply only require, no need was that to connect these two entities. So connect people who have dry leaves with people who want dry leaves, and once they come together they can exchange dry leaves among themselves, and at least a proportion of this challenge will be solved. And so with this vision, I created Brown Leaf Forum. So it's a connecting forum to bring together people who have dry leaves and people who want dry leaves, and for leaf exchange to take place between them. And so vision was that not a single dry leaf should be burnt in India. Though we are right now tackling very small proportion of the dry leaves that get generated every year, still our vision ultimately is that we should be able to send every leaf back to the soil instead of it going up as smoke in the air. And now the strategy that eventually we started with leaf donation, because for people who are currently burning off dry leaves, asking them to do mulching or composting was a huge step. Instead of baby step was to encourage them to donate those dry leaves. So simply collect those dry leaves. So you are anyway getting rid of dry leaves, but at least they are going back to the soil somewhere. And so I will just browse through this mulch, compost, and donate options, exactly what they are. Mulch and compost are the preferred options. So we encourage people to use mulching and composting to manage dry leaves within their premises. So I will explain why we give preference to that. Donation still comes as the last resort. That even after mulching and composting, there are surplus dry leaves. Some societies do have that problem where around 200 or 300 trees are there in the society. So if there is surplus, or for some reason mulching and composting is not possible, only then donation is the option. So it is just a glimpse of terraces. Like as I said, many people are adopting that soil-less gardening model. So many of these gardens don't even have any grain of soil. It's all dry leaf compost and kitchen waste. So as I mentioned, that what happens in a natural landscape where there is no human interference is that dry leaves fall, they remain on the soil, they form a protective layer over the soil, and that's where soil soil is able to retain moisture. It gets protection from that harsh sunlight, and a lot of microbial activity continues because of that moisture. And so this is what we will be doing in mulching. We are as I said, that we need to create cyclic process so that there is no waste, because output from one system serves as input to some other system, and in cities it won't happen automatically, so we need to do some modifications and create that cyclic process. So with mulching, what we do, that is uh, urban, in a natural landscape, it would have automatically happened that the leaves fall off and they remain in the soil. But since in a urban landscape, we soil availability of soil is the problem. We don't have much space. So what we do here, instead of keeping where the leaves fall off, we collect those dry leaves and we use it for mulching. So mulching is forming a layer over the soil with dry leaves. So a rule of thumb is that the soil should always be covered. So it can be green mulch, it can be like grasses that appear during rainy season, or it could be creepers that cover the soil. So that is green mulch. In case green mulch is not possible, then mulch with dry leaves. So dry leaves, hay can be used, anything to cover, any organic matter to cover that. So for strawberries, typically that straws were used, that's why it's strawberry. So any brown material like this, so it can be dry leaves, it can be hay, so that can be used to cover the soil surface. So that is brown mulch. So green or brown mulch. So soil should be always be covered with either of these. Even dried grass or from lawn mower, when you cut your lawn, that grass also can be used as mulch. So green or brown mulch. So for since we have dry leaves so easily available, we use them for mulching. So we simply take dry leaves, if possible, easily possible, we crush them and spread them over the soil surface. And so instead of keeping leaves where they fall, we collect them, and wherever we have gardens, so it can be garden on the soil, so it can be vegetable beds, it can be any beds for that matter, or it can be even pots on the terraces or in the balcony. So where there is a soil surface, we just take these leaves and make a layer of them on the surface. So it's just a glimpse of this garden, and you can see the result. So what happens when we make a layer, that, as I said, that soil is able to retain moisture. So you will realize that the watering can be less frequent, or even the quantity of water that we need to provide to the plants or vegetables, it's less. So we are able to conserve water because soil is not exposed. So evaporation reduces, and that's why soil retains moisture longer. Roots of a plant, they don't need water, they need moisture to grow, so which remains available for them for longer period. And when these leaves, since they are organic, they are also going to decompose. So when they decompose, as I said, the nutrients from them are going to the soil. So there is always a nutrient coming in for our plants to take up. And so this is just a glimpse of mulching. And as I said, mulching can be done anywhere. Even if you have 2-3 pots in your garden or on your windowsill, still you can do mulching there. And especially for pots, you can observe one thing, that is one more advantage of mulching is that whenever you water, in normally you will see that lot of muddy water goes out from the plant, from that pot base. And so whenever you're watering, that water enters the pot with great speed, and so it exits the pot with speed, and it takes away with it nutrients and soil. So with every watering, your actually plant is losing nutrients and soil. But when we do mulching, so when there is a layer over that surface, soil surface, the water, that velocity of water is broken. So instead of entering the pot with speed, water gradually percolates, and because of that, you will immediately observe this difference when you do mulching, that there is no running muddy water there. And that's why plant can manage with less and less water, and the soil and moisture is available for that plant for longer time. So that is one more advantage of mulching, and it can be implemented immediately for any size of the garden. And so we have again, as I said, that we have modified that process, but we have again implemented this process, and we have followed this soil to soil principle of nature when we do mulching, and that's why it becomes sustainable. Then composting is one more thing, where as we discussed earlier, when leaves fall off, they remain there throughout the summer, and when monsoons arrive, the leaves decompose, and the nutrients from them are returned to the soil. So in composting, we are actually implementing this same thing. So we are actually mimicking this same process, but with some modifications to suit our needs in the city. So here also we cannot let leaves remain where they have fallen, and we cannot wait for the rains to do this work because we don't have space. So what we do is we need to speed up the process. So we again collect the dry leaves, select a spot in our premises where it is convenient for us to set up a composting project, and using some catalyst we speed up this composting process. So we are not dependent, we don't need to wait for July for monsoon to arrive. We speed up it before that. So for composting also there are three things: pit composting, pile composting, and enclosure composting. And so these three methods are there where you can do it. So pit and pile are actually very cost effective alternatives, but usually to our aesthetics they are not very pleasing. So usually in urban areas, such enclosure composting is something that is practiced. So you create an enclosure using either a metallic mesh or pigeon mesh or something, and where it project looks neat and it actually feels like some serious project is going on. So usually people prefer enclosure composting in the cities. So idea is that you deposit dry leaves, you provide moisture, because we'll discuss that what are the vital factors for composting, and you create compost using that, and so and we use some culture to speed up this process. So that so I'll just discuss about it, that for any composting to happen, there are two actors that are present. So one is mechanical decomposer and other is chemical decomposer. So what mechanical decomposers do, they break down these leaves into smaller chunks so that they can be chemically digested by microorganisms. So these mechanical decomposers are typically insects. They are typically compost insects. Black soldier fly is there, then white grubs are there, then some wild roaches are there, which are these mechanical decomposers. And chemical decomposers are mostly bacteria, various microorganisms, and various type of fungus. So they chemically digest these leaves. And actually composting, usually people are get very scared when their composting is there. So composting, I would say that it's just like we make curd from the milk. So what we typically do is we take a bowl of milk, we warm it a bit, and we add a spoonful of or half a spoonful of curd to it, and that is it. So our role is our role ends there. So whatever hard work of converting all that milk into curd is done by the bacteria, and our responsibility is just to provide conditions that are suitable for this bacterial growth. So the temperature of the milk is what we have to ensure. We cannot just take milk from the fridge and make curd out of it. So the temperature has to be suitable for microbial or bacterial growth. So that is the only thing we need to do. Once we ensure that conditions are right, all the hard work is anyway is going to be done by the bacteria. And then exactly same thing is with composting. So again, here the hard work is done by that mechanical decomposers and chemical decomposers. So we need to just ensure that conditions are right for them to work or their growth and survival. So what those conditions are, we jokingly we call it ATM. So it's very easy to remember. It's aeration, temperature, and moisture. So aeration is something because we don't want process to turn anaerobic, because when it turns anaerobic, result is methane, which has foul smell, so it's not very pleasing, and almost 80% of composting projects fail because the process has turned anaerobic, and a lot of people start complaining about that smell. So aeration is something, so we ensure that in pit and pile that is not a problem. For enclosure also, we recommend that some porous material should be used so that aeration is taken care of automatically in that by the design itself. Then temperature is something, at least for Maharashtra, we don't need to worry about that factors. It is taken care of for us automatically. In North, when temperatures drop, the composting process can slow down a bit, but it picks up again when temperatures are suitable. And then moisture. Moisture is something which we need to actively manage. Just like we water our garden, we just need to water this either pile or pit or enclosure. Because moisture is something we need to provide. If we are able to use kitchen waste, then again that is not a problem, because kitchen waste is 80% water. So if you are creating a dry leaf layer, then kitchen waste, dry leaf, kitchen waste like sandwich, then you don't need to even water the pile, because whatever the necessary moisture is, that is provided through this kitchen waste. So typically this is the process. And as I said that since we are in a hurry to get the result, because there are more dry leaves would be coming all throughout the season and we don't have much space. So then we speed up this process. And so how we do that is just like as I said that we make curd from the milk and we add spoonful of or half a spoonful of curd as a culture. It has concentrated bacteria in it, so it's the same thing. In case of compost, culture is just a dose of microbes, and that is typically a soil. Some soil can be used because soil itself contains a lot of microbes. Then you can borrow compost from some friends or family or neighbors, and or even buttermilk. If you are just starting out, you want to try it for the first time and you have very small quantity of it, you can even use buttermilk. It, as you know, it contains microbes or bacteria. And otherwise some ready-made cultures are also present in the market. So just like curd, whatever culture you need to do, you just need to buy or borrow only for the first time. Once your own compost is ready, then it's the for the next batch of compost, this compost can act as culture. So this is the process. So again, here also we have done some modifications to what happens in nature. But again, here also soil to soil principle is followed, because once that compost is ready, we are going to use it as addition to the soil or as replacement to the soil. As if you are going soil for soilless gardens, then again that soil to soil principle is followed here. Though there are modifications, soil will or those dry leaves will not go exactly where they have fallen. They will go to different soils, but again they are going back to the soil and they are not going in the smoke. So that is the thing. That is again cyclic process. So
Aditi,
yeah.
This is Pankaj here. Can we wrap up in about 7 minutes?
Oh, sure, yes.
Then we have some time for discussion and questions.
Oh,
I'm sure there will be
absolutely.
7:51. So by about 8 o'clock, if you can wrap up.
No issue. So
Thank you.
Oh, no issue. So donation is something we have already discussed. So I won't go in detail. So again, here that cyclic process, in the sense that modified cyclic process is there, that leaves as shared, leaves from my tree went to Sujata's garden. So they went ultimately back to the soil, but not in the same place. So with this view, I created brown leaf, and this exchange of dry leaves started taking place. And this is a typically how exchange happens on the group, that where there is leaf donor, as we call them. So they post a message that we have so many dry leaves. So many gunny bags is a unit that we have actually adopted. So they mentioned that I have so many number of gunny bags. This is the area and this is my contact number. So for the person for whom that area is convenient, they respond. They decide a mutual time, and then taking away dry leaves is that leaf takers responsibility. Ensuring leaves are garbage free and they are packed in the bags is leaf donors responsibility. So this is typical. This happens all on collaboration principle. There is no financial transaction involved. Nobody pays any money to anybody. It just happens on the principle that somebody has something in surplus and some other person needs that. And so with this vision, this brown leaf started and it became quite successful. It was means people were ready to go that extra step of collecting dry leaves, packing them in gunny bags, and it's quite a hard work. I have done that, so I knew that it's not a very pleasant work to do. People were ready to do that, so that was also a positive thing for me, that or a pleasant surprise, I would say, that it was not anybody's first choice to burn those dry leaves. So even one alternative was provided, people were ready for that or were receptive towards it. And so with that vision now, that was my idea, that I just created one forum and I had no idea of what response would be, but it became successful beyond my imagination. And then one more thing I realized, that again, creating such forums in every city is first, it's what is required. We need some decentralized and distributed model for this exchange to take place. And so I'm just showing you map where these deciduous forests are there. So deciduous trees are all over India because the typical tropical thing, but this deciduous forest dedicatedly are these parts. So deciduous trees is a huge challenge, and we need to manage large amount of leaf litter at least for 6 months of the year. And so now I'm encouraging people to take action themselves instead of waiting for somebody to create some forum. So I'm encouraging people to actively look for leaf takers around. So if you have dry leaves, just look around and you will find these leaf takers. So actually I tell them what you need to do is just take a walk in your lane and just look upward. So you will see some plants or something speaking from somebody's terrace. So you know there is a terrace garden there, and so you know there is a leaf taker nearby. So I'm encouraging people now to actively look for leaf takers and establish such leaf exchange schemes with your neighbors themselves. So instead of going somewhere to donate your leaves, so find leaf takers around you. And first thing, as I said, I encourage them to do mulching and composting. And so I have written one guide for them. Many people are using this guide. They download it from the website. And then I have also written one ebook where you can create your own brown leaf community for your own town or city. And so this is my vision going forward from brown leaf, that I encourage people to take action themselves. Since I don't wish to just increase my brown leaf forum to that extent. I wish people to create their own forums, and that is already happening in Belgaum. There is one brown leaf forum in Aurangabad. There is such a forum, so people are coming forward. And as I said, that as an individual also, even if you don't want to take up responsibility of creating a forum, as individuals also you can actively set up this leaf exchange schemes with your neighbors. So that's all from my side, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aditi. I just want to ask, the illustrations are all made by you?
Yeah.
Yes, I know that you are and you can make out how brilliant they are. So I just wanted to make a point of that. It's amazing, and I've seen some of your other work, so that's also absolutely in terms of the illustration. But yeah, thank you so much, Aditi. Absolutely fascinating presentation. I think it's brilliant, and I think the the most captivating factor of the brilliance is the simplicity of what you have done. I mean, in some sense, it's a complex problem, but both in terms of what you have found as a solution and also in the way that you have presented to us. So thank you so much. We'll open up for questions, and we first ask, students have some questions or comments or clarifications, and then perhaps faculty members and the senior members. So yeah, please, the forum is open. Anybody can raise your hand, and yeah, sorry, Kiran, maybe you can take over and help us.
Shashank raised his hand. Maybe Shashank can go ahead and ask a question.
Hi Aditi, I am Shashank. I am a PhD student at Sitara. Thanks for your presentation. So I have a question based on my experience. It may not be directly related to your work, but I think I wanted to know your thoughts on that. So when I try to experiment and put dry leaves in a very small garden kind of space at my parents' place, so they are quite appreciative of the idea of mulching for the first few days. But then the view of the garden starts irritating them. They are like, "Tu kharab kya kar raha hai hamara is carry ko?" So, and I don't blame them, because everyone around them keeps their plant beds clean and neat. And they keep it that way. So have you also faced such challenges and these kind of challenges, and so the lack of awareness about these issues, and how have you dealt with them, if you have?
Thanks. No, actually what you have shared is a common problem, that because the perception is that when that you see that black soil, that it feels that clean, so your plant beds are neat and nice, and when the dry leaves are there, that usually perception, as I said, that for peat and pile composting, though they are cost effective ways, people go for enclosure composting because it looks neat and it seems like some serious project is going on. So same thing is for mulching. When you see the dry leaves are there, it actually the perception is that ये उनकी garden clean नहीं रख रहे हैं, जैसे leaves पड़े हैं. So that is, I agree with that. That is the perception. So, but again, as I said, actually the rule of thumb is that the soil should always be covered. So it's not a good idea to expose soil to the sun. So I would say that you encourage parents to check the results with their neighbors. So you have actually demo plots. If your neighbors are not doing mulching and your parents are doing it, so you have demo plots side by side where you can actually compare the results. So maybe if they keep the tab, they will realize that they need less and less water, or they can less frequently water the garden because soil moisture remains longer. And also the result will be, because these dry leaves, the mulching layer will decompose and nutrients will be in the soil. So then less and less external outputs will be needed for the garden. So just ask them to do that as a research project. You can guide them in that where less and less external outputs are required. You don't need to buy fertilizers from outside compared to what neighbors have to do, and the results will be astonishing. I can promise you that you will see that the growth of the plant is much faster than their neighbor's plot. So maybe encourage them to take it as a project, and so the neighbors will also follow the suit once they are convinced that okay, so aesthetic is something, there is no hard and fast rule, that once you have perception what is beautiful and what is not. But if we see, maybe the results if are seen, maybe that perception can change and people might be okay with this layer of dry leaves. So that's what I would suggest.
Thank you.
Yes, Ram Prasad.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was very nice talk, and also I came to know that you made the illustrations. That is even more nice. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned about some cultures which may have to be added to the compost to for the decomposition. Can you please share some cultures which are available in the market? I think some government institutions are also making, have also offered this.
Right. For Maharashtra, there is a Mahatma Phule Krishi Vidyapit, MPKV. So there is a culture prepared by them, and that is available in agriculture colleges all across Maharashtra. So you can buy from them, or any shop that actually usually sells seeds or anything. So usually they have these cultures present with them. So from government side, these agriculture colleges are there, and otherwise there are some private institutions also, which are private businesses who are doing that. So in Maharashtra, Inora is something I have found quite common, that they have this compost culture. So again, it's a concentrated compost actually. So this can be bought for many actually are there now. Daily Dump is also there. They also sell this culture. And as I said, you just need to buy it for the first time, because later on, or if you, as I said, that buying culture is one thing, or you can borrow it from somebody if in your society is doing composting. Then just as in older times, we used to borrow curd from people to make curd at home. So same thing you can do now. So you can borrow from your neighbors also. So their compost will act as culture for your compost.
Thank you,
So,
ma'am.
but and many online also you will find this. If in case borrowing is not an option, then buying also online also there. These are available by Daily Dump or Inora.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. Since there's nobody else asking, I had two questions, Aditi. One is, I think you've laid out for it, but if one of us also wants to start a program or initiative like this or try, what might be, can say we contact you and you can guide us, or do you have some, key things that we should keep in mind? I guess it'll take time. It won't happen overnight. But are there some key things that you would say that somebody wanting to start something should be aware of, so that we don't repeat those mistakes, so to say, just in case? That's one.
Okay.
What are key things to keep in mind when you want to repeat this initiative in its own form in some other city, or maybe even in IIT Bombay for that matter? I don't know. We have so much forest and leaves and all that.
Right.
And I think we end up burning a lot, but maybe that might be happening. But that is question number one. And question number two is a small one. Does cooked food also, can this go into this, or that should be completely kept out of your in the pile or the pit that we have in the homes, if we have? Is it okay to add cooked food also in that? Does it help, or is it not a good idea?
Right. So I will start with this small. Cooked food is okay. Means you can put any organic matter in your compost. Only thing is where cooked food should be avoided is if some people do in situ composting. That is, if you have a pot, then instead of having a dedicated thing for composting, we just add that organic matter, leaves or kitchen waste to the pot directly where the plant is growing. So that is called in situ composting. That at that site itself you are carrying out composting. So there cooked food should be avoided, because cooked food should never enter in the pot where the plant is growing. So because the cooked food often contains oil or ghee. And when earthworms are present in that pot, so their skin gets covered with this layer of ghee or oil, and it blocks the pores through earthworms respire through their skin. So these pores get blocked and earthworms die. So when there is a plant and when you're carrying out in situ composting, avoid cooked food. But if you have a separate compost or peat pile or enclosure where you are carrying out dedicated composting, cooked food is fine there. Only thing concern with cooked food is that it attracts mice or rats. Because if the dry leaves are there, which are not at all attractive to the rats, so if you are only dry leaves, you don't face any problem with the rats. But when the cooked food comes, that smell attracts rats. And if there is a garden where the lot of soil is there, again it is not a problem. But for parking lots or for balconies, these rats can pose a lot of problem. So their cooked food should be avoided. So cooked food should go where you won't face much problem, or then otherwise keep it somewhere where rats cannot taste. So in the balcony also you can just hang it from somewhere if your cooked food you are presenting, or even balconies, if the rats are not reachable, you can use cooked food in your composting. But especially where in societies where you're carrying out this, then rats can actually burrow lots of holes there, and it can pose a problem. So already people are skeptical about composting projects. So if the rats become rampant, then rats are part of the ecosystem. So it's that you cannot just avoid them, but at least then avoid cooked food in your society projects. Keep it in your personal balcony projects. So that's what I would suggest. In composting, again, means to sum up, in compost, cooked food is fine. Don't use cooked food where you're carrying out in situ composting. So that is a, and regarding starting such initiatives, so as I said, yeah, you can go, start with baby steps where you can first use dry leaves for mulching. So currently, if they are getting burned, then first step would be start mulching. Just try it out for some plots, pots, or some vegetable plots. Then composting is next thing, where you start with very small quantity. And I often ask people to start with something they already have. So instead of getting somebody to dig the pit or creating enclosure, just go for what you already have. So if you have a bucket, or if it is a leaking bucket, more the merrier, because already the bucket is leaking. It's as a bucket, it's of no use to you, but it is vital because the water should get drained from that. So you can use it for composting. If you have a earthen pot, matka hai, you can use it because it is already porous. So use that. If you have a earthen this thing planter, start using that. So start with a very small quantity, just check the results, see how it is happening, how the aeration and everything you're able to manage. And once you get a successful compost, no matter what the quantity is, but once you get that successful compost, you are converted for life. That is the thing. So your confidence level increases, and then you can go for a larger scale projects. So that is one thing as an individual what we can do. So first start with your own home, and then go on the society level. And as I said, I would say that as your brother is doing in your parental house, so what he is doing is he created towers, and where he is doing composting and is converting neighbors also. So what Piyush has shared, it's brilliant. He's doing that. So that is one thing. Start as an individual level, and then go to societal level. And otherwise, your other question was that if you want to create such a forum in your city, then with social media, I would say it's quite easy to do that now. So for us, we experimented a lot regarding what that communication channel should be. So initially, when I started, that is the one mistake I would advise people to avoid. That I started publishing my phone number everywhere, and I encourage people to contact me. And I used to do that connection, that when that matchmaking, that whenever there is leaf donor used to call me, I used to register the name, and then I used to get them connected with leaf taker in their area. So I was doing that, and I realized this is not sustainable. The volume of calls I was receiving every day during leaf fall season was tremendous. So then we shifted to WhatsApp as a medium, and WhatsApp is something we found very convenient. We even actually, I had developed an app because I have IT background. So I had developed an app where I thought that app would be more convenient for people to use. But that was again a lesson for me. Many people said that app would be actually a better idea instead of WhatsApp. But when I actually developed the app, nobody used it. So I realized, because we already have so many apps on our phones, that adding one more app to that, I think people did not find it convenient. So instead of they were making use of the app they already were using, which is WhatsApp. And so that is saying WhatsApp is something we have found that it's very easy to use, and it connects people, and also lot of other exchange happens through these WhatsApp groups. So there are some problems also, that lot of traffic comes in, but also lot of ideas are exchanged along with dry leaves. So I would say WhatsApp, we have found it's a very good way, and it's free, and it's very easy to use. So if anybody wants to start such a forum, I would say start a WhatsApp group, and where in every city there are gardening groups are there. So become a member of that gardening groups and create a message, and just encourage people to join this WhatsApp group. So the gardening group members are your leaf takers, and leaf donors are easy to use, easy to bring into the group, because they're already looking for ways to get rid of those dry leaves. So you just, if you broadcast a message to all your contacts that you are creating such a forum where this will be the thing, and just set some rules from the start. Like I said that for leaf donors, it's their responsibility that no waste or no garbage should be mixed with the leaves. So these are some strict policies that we need to implement. And for that purpose, I have written one book. So even I can share it with you, which you can circulate with your with the participants. So where I just listed out what experiences I had and how one can deal with that. So I have just shared my experiences and some pointers for somebody or anybody who wants to create such a group. And one thing I would like to share is that don't wait to get started. If you really want to do it, just start it. Because when I started, I had not never done composting before, so I had no knowledge of composting. But if you think that okay, I will just study everything, I will do composting, I will know everything about composting and then start, it's actually not necessary. Because when I started Brown Leaf, many people joined who helped me in this. So there were many, there my core team members now, that they people who have experience with that, so they came to my help. So whenever I had lack knowledge, they supplied it. So you don't need to have a perfect plan, or you know, need to know each and everything to start this initiative. Just start with what you have.
Right. Thank you, Aditi. And please do send that link or your PDF, and we've circulated in our center and others. So if anybody is interested in it, thanks a lot, Aditi. Anybody else?
Vijay has a question, sir.
Yeah. Hi, ma'am. Thanks for sharing such nice work. My question is, am I audible? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, ma'am, my question is, if we see the forest, we see that the leaves decompose naturally. So, if we want to do such intervention like taking out leaves from forest and doing composting or mulching, so are we disturbing the natural cycle of this forest because they decompose naturally there?
Actually, we are not taking away forest from leaves from the forest, because when there is a natural landscape and if there is no human activity, so leaves can remain as it is there. So we are not disturbing such places. Where we are intervening is where, as I said, that there is no soil, so this natural process cannot take place, and so the leaves are falling on some hardscape like some concrete surface, some paver blocks, and where they remain there, and then people get uncomfortable with that and they just burn off those dry leaves. So these are the areas where we're intervening, where this natural process is happening. Even in some societies, in my own society, we have a patch where all the trees are now grown trees, so they don't need watering, they don't need anything from us. So we have kept that patch as it is, so the leaves fall there, they remain there, and they decompose there. Since we don't need to enter that spot, so there is no human activity, so there is no disturbance for us. So this is the soak pit that we have created, that where this mulching happens, composting happens, and all happens at natural pace. So we don't need to even add culture there, because we are not worried. It can, the leaves can wait till rains arrive to decompose. So such even in urban areas, such plots can be created where this natural thing takes place. But again, as I'm emphasizing that where this natural process is happening anyway, we are not going to interfere there. So from natural landscape or from forest, we are not going to remove leaves. Where there is no place for this natural process to take place, and because of that people want to get rid of those dry leaves by burning or dumping them in municipal waste, this is the area where we want to interfere. And again, as I said, it will not be exactly like what happens in nature, which actually is ideal, but it's not possible in our cities. So then via media is to modify that process a bit, again make it cyclic, that leaves ultimately go back to the soil, but maybe in some different area, but only where there is no scope for this natural process to take place. If the natural process is taking place, we don't need to interfere in that.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, thanks.
If there are no other questions or comments, anybody? Can we request our?
Can I?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask any advice regarding use of earthworms, that is vermicomposting. So any specific views about composting versus vermicomposting?
Okay, so in case of vermicomposting, what happens that you are using earthworms, so they are living organisms. So you need to maintain them, or you need to ensure their survival and their growth. And so if something goes wrong, like if there is a less moisture or something, if there is that whatever you are doing composting, that is in directly contact with the soil, again that is okay, because earthworms can shift to the soil if the conditions are not right in your pit. But if that is not a scope, you are doing it in a balcony or something where earthworms don't have any other place to go, then it can happen that if you're going out for some day, for a few days and something like that, and there are some then moisture is not sufficient for the earthworms or something like that happens, then the earthworms die. So that is the thing, that because it's a living entity, you need to take very care of that. So if you're going away for a few days, then you need to ensure that there is somebody taking care of that. And so that is the challenge. Vermicomposting something you can do, but you have to keep in mind that you are it's like having pets actually, those earthworms, that you have to take care of them. As opposed to that, if you're doing composting with this culture where microbial activity is going on, again as I said, microbes are there which need to be maintained, their growth has to be ensured. But again, if moisture is not sufficient, something goes wrong, the microbial activity will stop, and those mechanical decomposers are insects, they automatically come whenever there is something to digest. So if the conditions are not right, or if sufficient material is not available, they simply go away. So you're not killing something there, and that's why that is the difference between vermi and this thing, that the maintenance required for vermicomposting is slightly more. So if you're able to ensure that, nothing like it.
But there is, I mean, is there a substantial advantage? I mean, there is a maintenance required, but will it make the
Yeah.
process faster?
Yeah, process faster. Nutrient content wise also, vermicomposting will be of good quality, even in case of dry leaves as opposed to kitchen waste and dry leaves. So if you do composting only with dry leaves, the nutrients will be less. If you combine kitchen waste with dry leaves, nutrients the resulting nutrients in the compost will be more. So same with vermicomposting. So what's the nutrient wise, it's a very good idea to have vermicompost, because and those earthworms with their activity, they create this what's a gaps in that, so the aeration is also ensured.
Okay.
So if you're able to do it, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
So probably not. So Anand, you want to thank Aditi on our behalf, please?
Sure. Yeah. So on behalf of Sitara family, let me thank Aditi Devdhar for this wonderful talk. I mean, it is nice to see. That how somebody can initiate such a large scale activity with their passion. I mean, because that passion ultimately drives, and then it results into such a benign activity, and so much of so much leaves which were getting burnt are avoided, and there are so many benefits of variety of kinds and variety of scales. And then since you have also created this, more than that, you have created this whole, I think, awareness as well as hand-holding system, which will enable many other people to adopt this practice and create multiple such. There is a rippling effect, so multiple such groups can be created in various locations. So I think that is the really a nice part of your work, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time today and talking to us about this. So
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.